Welcome to Under the Hood with Dr. Alex and Dr. Rebecca,
where we share pearls of wisdom from our 30 years of combined clinical experience. Okay, here's a tricky topic. Might make some blush. And then other people just try and completely avoid it altogether. So that's why we're doing this episode. This episode is talking about sex with your partner. And we also want to talk about talking during sex. And we haven't decided if that's going to also take place in this episode or if it needs its own episode. But the first thing that we want to bring up is how enriching and wonderful it can be to talk about sex with your partner and how it can cultivate a much more gratifying and healthy and enjoyable sex life. But I don't think a lot of people are talking about sex.
Yeah. I mean, couples who have a good sex life that lasts for a long time talk about sex more than they have sex.
Yeah. Talk about it a lot. And so I have several patients who really struggle because they feel like their partner doesn't understand what brings them pleasure and that they don't want to wound their partner. They don't want to hurt their ego or their feelings but they want their partner to understand what brings them pleasure so that they'd be more interested in being intimate. And so that's a really difficult conversation to broach. And I'll give you an example and then I'd love to hear what you think. 95% of people with a clitoris need significant clitoral stimulation. This is a completely normal physiological truth that stimulating in and around the clitoris is very pleasurable for people with clitorises. And yet, in our mainstream media, it looks like P in the V, kind of penis in vagina, nowhere near the clitoris is what's bringing pleasure. And that just isn't the reality. But it's hard if your partner isn't aware of that fact, that then they may feel that it is somehow lessening their ability to pleasure their partner if the clitoris needs to be involved. And so is there any way to bring that up in a gentle way? Or how do people start these really tricky conversations?
That's such a great question. So, yeah, it can feel like it's really challenging to start these difficult conversations. So let's get to that. I want to get to that in a minute. But one of the ways in which we do not understand the clitoris, I mean, there's so many ways that the clitoris is misunderstood. And even for folks who have clitorises, they are really deeply misunderstanding the role of the clitoris. So the clitoris is the only organ that is solely for pleasure. And in sex ed, boys and girls are taught boys have penises, girls have vaginas. Even before sex ed, this is what we teach our kids. A boy has a penis, a girl has a vagina. This is false. This is patently untrue. Yes, boys have penises and girls have vaginas. I mean, gender expression aside, this is problematic for many reasons. But the vagina is the birth canal. It does not have hardly any nerve endings.
Right.
Can you imagine giving birth through the clitoris? It would be excruciating, and birth is already painful enough. So by design, the birth canal does not have a lot of nerve endings.
Right.
It doesn't mean that intercourse is not pleasurable, but the anatomical counterpart to the penis is the clitoris. It's the same tissue.
Yes.
The clitoris gets engorged. It
increases in size tremendously.
So actually the clitoris gets an erection.
Yes.
When arousal is happening.
Yes.
And so to exclude the clitoris or to think that we just like sort of brush up against it and that's going to do the trick, it would be like excluding the penis. So I love this example that I find to be, every time I use it, it makes me chuckle a little bit. But imagine having sex with the balls.
Right.
The testicles being the main focus.
Yes.
That our culture and in our, in your relationship with your partner, they think that your balls are the ultimate in the erogenous zone, and they are doing excessive ball fondling, and you're kind of swinging the penis trying to get it involved. You're like, okay, can we just get just a little? Oh, that feels good. Oh, wait, okay, now you've moved on. You've moved back to the balls.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't
So
mean
true. Wow,
that
I never heard that until right now, and it's very useful
it's very
visual.
useful, like
Yes.
truly, and it's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it outrageous
It's
to think?
outrageous.
No, not to say that ball fondling is
No,
not.
it's lovely, but
It's lovely,
yeah, it's
but it's
not the
not
main
the main
event.
event.
Mhm.
And so, but if we truly, if every movie showed men
Yeah,
orgasming from ball fondling,
right.
and every partner that you have
Yeah,
thinks
totally.
that this is what
Then
gets you
everybody would kind
off,
of assume. Yeah.
and
Well, and
even
also if your pleasure was so decentralized,
Mhm.
because I think that's another huge part here. And
Mhm.
that yeah, penis owner's pleasure is perceived as more important.
Well, from a reproductive standpoint, the penis owner's pleasure is more important
Mm,
because they need to ejaculate in order
interesting.
to have
Yeah.
a baby. But there's generations of women who have had multiple children and never had an orgasm.
Yeah, right.
So
So
female
sad.
pleasure is not central to
No.
reproduction and not essential to
No,
reproduction at all.
and also reproduction is not central to sex.
Also not. Yeah, so
So there you
unless
go.
yeah,
So if we're
exactly.
talking about sex, I think it's two different things, right? Talking about
Yeah.
sex, then I think the pleasure is paramount.
Pleasure is
Yeah.
paramount.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, Emily Nagoski, who I think has done
So much
arguably
research. Yeah,
done
definitely.
yeah, she's done more in bringing what research there is into the public,
Hmm.
mind. So she has this book, Come As You Are,
Yeah.
which I think is really excellent, and then she's got a
Come
second book,
together.
Come
Mhm.
Together. Yeah, exactly. Lori Mintz
Oh, I was going to say, how
also.
could we not talk about
Yeah,
Becoming
Lauren
Clitorate? That
Mintz,
was on the
Becoming
tip of my
Clitoris is
tongue. Yeah.
also a great one.
Hmm.
So one of the things, if you have a partner who is interested,
Yeah.
I think doing a book club
Cool.
can be really helpful.
Okay.
We read there's there's also the male-centered sort of book, which is called She Comes First, that
Okay. I
has a lot
haven't
of
read
good
that one. Yep.
information
Okay.
as well. So choosing, if your partner would be open to reading a
Mm.
book together,
Yeah.
there's some really good information out there in these books, because I think one of the things that holds people back from talking about sex is shame,
Yeah.
but also not having a shared language.
Yeah. Totally.
So it feels awkward. People
Yeah.
say it
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
sex,
Totally.
or people say sex and not get, they don't get really specific about
Yeah.
what they mean,
Hmm.
or they'll say intimacy when, what does intimacy
Yeah.
mean? There's so many different ways to be intimate. I mean, having a, being a parent is a
Yeah. Yeah.
deeply intimate
Intimate
thing,
experience.
so
Right. Yeah.
these
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
general
Hmm.
terms, and people don't feel, they feel awkward getting really specific. But unless we get really specific,
Yeah. Right. Then we don't know what we're
then we
talking
don't know
about.
what we're talking about. And I think the other thing that can sometimes happen is that people think, "Oh, I'm good in bed. I know what to do."
Mm.
There's like the partner who's like, "I know my way around the clitoris," or
Yeah.
"I
Yeah.
know my,"
Yeah.
but it's like, "Well, but do you know your particular partner? Do
Yeah.
you know exactly what they like?
Hmm.
They may like," and we're talking about, people with vulvas here, but like, do you know what actually kind of stimulation your
Mm.
partner likes the best? Because for some people, they want direct clitoral stimulation.
And then sometimes that's too
It's
overstimulating.
too overstimulating. For some people, adding something like a vibrator
Yeah.
or even sort of like manual stimulation during intercourse
Hmm.
can be really helpful. For other people, actually, clitoral stimulation with intercourse is too overstimulating and distracting. And
Hmm.
so, actually, their easiest way to orgasm is without intercourse. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that intercourse isn't on the menu,
Hmm.
but actually, having something inserted into the vagina is not an easier way for them to orgasm.
Right.
For some people, different positions can be enough clitoral stimulation that they're
Hmm.
able to orgasm through intercourse, but really it's through clitoral
Yeah.
stimulation, maybe being on top,
Hmm.
um, or, different positions, but it's very individual.
Yeah. And
There's a wide range of what's normal.
this is just reminding me of that orgasm gap that doesn't exist in
Yeah.
same-sex couples as much as it
Not as
does.
much.
And so
Yeah.
it's interesting, though, that I think if we were just talking about what society believes, that it's quote unquote harder
Hmm.
for women to orgasm, or, people who have clitorises and vulvas. And
That is
actually
not
that's
true.
not
It's
true.
not true.
No, it's it's the time.
Mhm.
There's time. It does take longer typically if you're looking at purely time.
So I think that that might be true, but also when I talk to women about masturbation,
It can be quick.
really
Mhm,
quick. It
mhm,
can be really quick. I
mhm.
mean, there's a range of what's normal,
Yeah.
but using fantasy and vibrator
Yeah,
tends
totally.
to be really
Really quick.
quick.
I think I bring up time more so in the sense that the warm up, I think people don't
Mhm.
realize that you could start the warm up in the morning for something in the evening,
Absolutely.
because there's that's how we're so creative and imaginative, and our brain can start to work, and that actually really enhances the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you don't have the brain and the fantasy on board, then the sensation, the friction and the lubrication is essential, but it can feel neutral or even bad if
Yes. If
your brain and your
100%.
fantasy and the arousal is not
That's
on
right.
board
And
from a
that's where
mental
I think
perspective.
sometimes people lose that. We were talking about this maybe in the last episode where it's things that happened earlier in the day come into it more so,
Mhm.
I think, for people who are experiencing it that way. Their brain is saying, ugh, I can't stop thinking about
Yeah.
whatever that argument that we had earlier.
Yeah.
It's not just the friction, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. And for people who have more spontaneous desire, which tends to be people who have more testosterone,
Yeah.
which tends to be people who are male by
Hmm.
birth, or who are taking testosterone supplements, when there's more testosterone in the body, there's more spontaneous desire.
Mm.
And the spontaneous desire overrides those other thoughts,
Mm.
almost
Yes, it
like
overrides it. I
intrusive
see.
thoughts.
Whereas this responsive desire,
Hmm.
you have to be responding to something.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. I love the way you just put that. Okay, so that gives me some language,
Yeah.
which is the topic of this podcast episode,
Yes.
which is the language, and that is really helpful.
Hmm.
Wow, it's so funny how it comes back to even our conversation about fighting.
Hmm.
It's like when you have the language, it helps you to identify how to go about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you suggest people how do people broach this topic with their partner?
So I think that you have to have a shared language with your partner.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm sure that with your patients, when you talk about sex with your patients,
Mhm.
you cultivate a shared
Yes,
language with them.
totally.
You use certain words, you probably use more clinical words.
Yeah.
I do as well
Yeah.
because we are in a clinical setting
Sure.
where I would be using probably more clinical words. I'm not
Mhm.
using a lot of slang
No,
to
yeah, right.
refer to body parts or anything like that. But actually knowing how your partner wants you to refer to their body parts. So for
Interesting.
some
Okay.
people, like, you may say, I don't know, the word dick
Mhm.
or the word, penis or
Mhm.
the word I don't know. There's
Yeah,
all kinds of
whatever.
different
Yeah,
ones,
there's all
Peter or
kinds. Uh-huh, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And some you might be like, okay, I kind of like that.
Mhm.
And others may really make your skin crawl.
Yeah,
You're like
totally.
every
That's
time your
offensive
partner
or
says
whatever, yeah.
something, right? Like I think pussy is a word that
Yeah.
is one that can
Mhm.
go,
Either way.
either way. That you may like that. You may
Mhm.
like to
Totally.
refer, using those particular words. But if your partner is repeatedly using a word that you're like, I really don't
Yeah.
like it when you
Mhm.
call my,
Yeah.
particular parts that, or, an example is some people may say refer to sex as fucking.
Mhm.
And for other people, that feels really like that's something that
Derogatory or something. Yeah.
derogatory or
Mhm.
something. And so cultivating that shared language that what your partner
Yeah, what
likes,
works for them.
what works
Okay.
for them. And for couples who don't have this, which is a lot of couples,
Mhm.
I will actually give them a list and ask them to go through. And usually people have a stronger negative reaction
Yeah.
than positive
And some stuff
reaction,
is more neutral, yeah.
and
Okay.
some stuff is more neutral. So that's a good place to start is what are you actually talking about? So if you say, well, when we have sex, okay, what does that mean? There's a lot. Is it
Mhm.
when you kiss me, when you touch me in a certain way, when we're actually having intercourse,
Yeah.
when you're having oral sex? Like being able to have the language to be specific about what you're actually talking about
Mm.
is really important.
Okay. And so then once you have the language, is there a timing to this? It's like I'm thinking, do you talk about it shortly afterwards? Do you talk about leading into it?
Mhm.
And then how can you approach it in a way that isn't hurting people's feelings essentially? Like how do you give someone constructive criticism.
Yeah. So I would say that taking a positive
Mhm.
so
I think that's super because it's so much easier to
yes.
say what you liked. Like,
Yeah.
I really liked when you did that,
Yeah.
you know?
But it's not always our first instinct because we may notice more, especially if we're in a little bit of a deficit where the sex is more pleasurable for one person than the
Mhm.
other. It may be easier to think about, oh God, they're doing that thing again. That is like maybe you act like you liked it that one time and then they've
Yeah.
like really latched onto it and they
Totally.
keep doing it. Or sometimes, particularly for people who have clitorises, they may fake an orgasm.
Yeah.
And then their partner is like, dang, every time I do that,
Yeah, right, right.
and then they have a
Yeah,
misperception. And
that's
so
so hard.
but then it's like I mean, faking an orgasm is kind of like lying. That's usually how it lands with the partner.
Totally. Yeah, it's
So
dishonest,
it's a
right?
little dishonest, and so that can be a really hard thing to back away from.
Yeah.
So finding something that's positive.
Mm.
So praising and giving sort of advice or nudging sort of in the right direction.
Yeah,
Wow, I really
interesting.
liked it when you did that.
Yeah, okay.
Or just really asking for what you want.
Yeah.
I would like for you to do, X, Y, and Z to me,
Are you open
whatever
to
it is.
that?
Are you
Mhm.
open to that? Or I really like it when you do that.
And are you thinking during, before, after? It doesn't matter. It's person dependent.
It doesn't really matter. I think
Okay.
that when it's positive, when you're giving positive feedback, when you say, wow, that was amazing.
Mhm.
What were you doing with
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
tongue? Or
totally. Yeah,
what were
yeah.
you doing? Like that can be that pillow talk
Yeah,
where
totally.
we are, that's,
Already in that soft zone. You're
yeah,
just kind of close.
exactly. And that's sort of maybe a different episode where we talk about how do you talk dirty? How do you
Mhm.
talk about sex during sex?
Mhm.
And a lot of that is actually getting really specific about what you like, what you want, what your partner's doing, what you want them to do to you.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
that's like getting
Wow, that's so
specific
interesting
about
because
your
I think of
pleasure
it
is
as
talking dirty. That's
okay.
what it is.
So I think about it as observations of what's actually happening. Like, "You're so wet," like, I feel like that's
Yeah.
partners will say that.
Yes.
That's really yeah,
But why
okay.
would you say
Yeah,
partners
yeah,
say that
because you're turned on. Yeah, mhm, yeah.
because you're turned on and because it turns them on.
Yes,
They're
it
not
does.
saying, "Ooh, you're so
No, no,
wet." They're
it's
like,
very positive.
"Wow, it's
Right,
very
right,
positive."
exactly.
Exactly.
Which that's tricky because there's times in life where even if you're aroused, that's
Yeah.
not happening.
Right.
So I do think that that is one of those topics that we will obviously clearly now that we're midway through here, I'm realizing we need to dedicate a full episode to
Yeah.
because that does alter your perception. There's many phases postpartum, menopause, postmenopause where lubricant is really essential and it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with your level of arousal. So anyway, let's
Same with erections.
yes,
Same with erections. So
functions.
those are functions.
Yes.
And functions can certainly be very arousing,
Yeah.
but functions is performance.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so making those observations like you're so wet or you're so hard or
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
that can be really arousing. But what you're actually saying is something that you like, something that is keeping
Interesting.
you in the moment.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so yes, so let's talk about talking during sex.
Another time.
Yep.
Yes.
And now we can talk about how to
How
talk
to talk
about
about
sex.
sex. Yeah.
So like I think this is just so cringy for people.
It
Even
is
when they're really
cringy.
close.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that people miss so when I say couples who have great sex that lasts a lifetime
Yeah.
talk about sex more than they have sex,
Mhm.
I don't mean that they're like talking dirty all the time.
Yeah, no.
Although they may be.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, an eggplant emoji, that's talking about sex.
Yeah.
Trying to schedule sex,
Mhm.
that's talking about
Totally.
sex. Saying, I know we talked about having sex today, but I'm really tired, or I ate too much at dinner and
Yeah.
I'm not feeling sexy.
Yeah.
Could we do
Yeah.
it tomorrow? I really
Looking forward
wanna
to it.
I'm
Totally.
really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So sharing your experience
Mhm.
of wanting to
Yes.
be with your
Totally.
partner.
It's so brave.
It is
Yeah.
brave and it's also essential and it's talking about sex.
Yes, it is.
It can be talking about,
Yeah.
I really want to be able to want
Yeah.
sex with you, and these are the things that are holding me back, and I
Yeah.
really feel bad about that, and I don't want you to
Mhm.
think it's personal. It can be, I really want you to know that when I'm like what we were just talking about in the pelvic floor episode,
Mhm.
where you encourage your patients to have those preemptive conversations, when we're having sex, you may notice that I am, my
Yeah.
erection is not
As hard.
as hard
Mhm.
for this has nothing to do
With you.
with you.
Right.
So that's also talking about
Yes.
sex. Like,
Yeah, and when that happens, I'd like to focus
exactly.
on your pleasure and how
Exactly.
lovely that is, but it's how difficult it is to say it
Yeah.
until you say it and it goes over so well, and then
Yeah.
it's great. But you're right, I do feel that when my patients and I are discussing this and I'm asking them to bring this conversation to their partner, it's so much easier to blame it on me. I
Yeah.
usually say, you know,
Alex told me.
Alex told me
Yeah.
that I needed to, just say this ahead of time to help with the anxiety piece of this, or Alex said that I should share this with you, whatever. And so I feel like I just say, use me as the excuse kind of
Mhm.
thing. And I
Mhm.
joke, like, people will say, Alex, I thought about you during sex. And it's like, so it's that it's completely
Yeah.
clinical, and it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I told them to breathe and relax, and they remembered to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, I do think somehow it's hard for us, as close as we are with that intimate partner, to be able to discuss it.
But what happens is when they are able to discuss it, when your patients and my patients are able to discuss it with me
Mm,
or during therapy, then it gives that shared language so it's easier to talk about it next time.
yeah.
I think that one of the things that can happen is that a lot of people may feel some shame about
Yep.
their own sexuality.
Okay.
Like either they
Of
don't have
course.
enough
Culturally. Yeah.
desire or the things that they want are kind of
Mm,
weird or that they're going to
mm.
be rejected. Many, many people have
So
had
vulnerable.
the experience of
Yes.
being rejected. And those moments loom large, right? It may be like, I don't know,
Yeah, you
as a
never want to experience that again, right? It just
never.
hurts. Yeah.
It's like maybe as a teenager, you had like a moment where there were like, I don't know, braces involved
Yeah, or
or
being ghosted
you being
after, all
ghosted.
that stuff. Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. Someone breaking up with you or never
Mhm.
calling you back or,
Totally.
these are really
Yeah. And
painful
it's
and
deep wounds. Yeah.
deep wounds. And so it makes sense. So one of the things that I think can happen is that if one person really wants to talk about it, they may come with what they want or what their fantasy and
Mhm.
their partner kind of freezes.
Yeah.
Or they may say, this I think happens a lot, is you may have a partner who is very curious about
Mm.
their partner's pleasure. And they say,
Yeah.
what do you like? What do you want?
Mm.
And they're like,
I
I
don't
don't
know. I don't
know.
know. Yeah,
I
I got to
don't
figure
know.
that
It
out.
feels like a lot of
Yeah,
pressure.
totally.
Or they might know
Mm.
and they feel too shy to say it.
Yeah. So it almost sounds like it might be easier to start from, like, did you like when I did that? Or did you, yeah,
Yeah.
something.
But even that can be, this is an act of courage.
It's such an act of
And
courage.
a lot of times it's an act of supreme courage and vulnerability.
Mhm.
Sometimes it can be easier to show than tell.
Okay.
So there is this
Yeah, yeah,
thing
that's
that
what I was thinking when you were
happens.
talking about earlier, just,
Yeah,
like, using your hand to move
exactly.
their hand. Yeah,
Exactly.
during, just to
Yes.
kind of be like,
Yes.
move it away or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Or sometimes saying, giving like soft directions, like a little harder, a little
Yeah,
softer,
totally.
a little,
Faster, yeah, slow.
yeah.
Yep.
So that can be helpful during.
Mhm.
But something that can happen for people is that some people, when they're feeling a lot of sensation or when they're in the moment, whether it's shame, but also it's a sensory thing,
Yeah,
that
sensory.
they
Mhm.
actually have a hard time finding words
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
So that can also be challenging. So if you're one of those people who has it's overwhelming to try to find the words in the moment,
Yeah.
then it sometimes that debrief and keeping it positive
Mhm.
to the extent to which
Yeah, that which
you
you
can.
can. Interesting. And also just noticing, right? It's more
Yeah.
just saying things that you're noticing. I noticed this,
Yes. Yes.
and so that to me is a little less intimidating than just a cold call separate from the
Yeah,
act,
that's right.
right?
Like, I just want you to know we've been doing this way for years, but it's not been working for me for all of that time. One of the things that I think can also be helpful, it's like blaming it on you. Oh,
Mm.
well, it's so
Yeah, I listened to
interesting.
this
Alex
podcast.
said this
Yeah,
thing, or yeah, I listened to this podcast,
that
or I
said
read
talking
this
about sex.
book,
Yeah. Mhm.
and I didn't really ever think about it for me, but it does kind of resonate. So it's almost like this is new information for me too.
Yeah,
That can be helpful as well.
because so many of my patients have been in their relationship for years and years and years. And the idea of, number one, doing something differently, and number two, discussing doing something
Mhm.
differently is really intimidating.
It is.
And yet it can transform someone's sex life and
Yes.
make it so much more enjoyable and pleasurable, especially for people who are having that desire discrepancy.
Yeah. And I think that it's okay to not know the answers. Sometimes people think that, okay, if I'm going to bring up this conversation and it's
Yeah,
going to
I
be
need to
awkward,
know.
I need to really know. I have to give instruction. But you really don't. You
Yeah.
can just bring up the conversation. I
Mhm.
really would like for it to, our sex life to be more pleasurable, or I would really like to be having more orgasms,
Mm,
or I would really like to have more desire. I want to feel
mhm.
like I want to have sex with you more. Can we try to figure this out
I
together?
love that. Almost approaching it from a sense of curiosity
Yeah.
because doesn't everyone love to feel useful? So you're coming to them with a problem that you're
Yeah.
hoping that they can help you solve.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that I think can be sort of helpful, but again, this is an act of supreme
it
courage
is.
because a lot of times, you know, when you're having for folks who are not in a relationship that
Yeah.
matters, they're having a one night stand or they are in a new relationship. Um, it's easier to have
I
these
was going to say perfect time
conversations.
to practice. Yeah, just
Perfect
go
time to
for it. Right.
practice. Yep. And low stakes.
Yellow sticks, say whatever you want. Yeah.
But if you're in a relationship that is deeply meaningful,
Mm,
that you really care and love
totally. And
about,
that you respect like
you
so
respect the
much.
person, you don't wanna hurt them, it can be it really is in some ways even more an act of
Mm.
supreme courage to have some of these conversations.
Yeah, and this is just bringing up a thought for me, which is I do feel that culturally it's not super encouraged to say ahead of time. Like I was thinking more so for these newer relationships to be able to just say ahead of time what your needs are,
Mhm.
because you're just kind of, yeah, you're shy or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
not to be assertive and
Mhm.
express your needs.
Yeah.
That is just,
It's true.
it's so important, but it's so hard to do.
It is hard to do, but you know who does it well is LGBTQ
Oh, yeah.
folks. They talk about top or bottom
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
what they need or what they want. The
And
other
are more creative
Yeah.
anyway. And
Yeah.
so then it's,
Absolutely. And the other folks who do this really well as well are the folks in the kink community
yeah.
because there's a
Hmm.
safety issue. They're talking about what they want, what
Logistics.
they need. They're
Mm,
they're having these conversations
mm.
of consent and pleasure ahead of time.
Yes.
So even if you are a, vanilla heterosexual, taking a page, there is still so much range
Yes.
for sexual expression that if you don't talk about it, you're not
Totally.
gonna know, you're not gonna discover it. You're either gonna be not getting what you need and thinking, "Okay, this isn't really what I want," or "That's not really what I need in order to orgasm or in order to have pleasure." Or you are going to be having sex that is not all that
Yeah, you're
pleasurable,
not that interested.
or you're not, there might be this whole world that you didn't even know was pleasurable for
Hmm.
you that you're not exploring because you haven't had the conversations.
This is reminding me so much of when you said that, sex can mean so much more than a penis in a vagina.
Mhm,
And of course we know that and hopefully our listeners know that. But not limiting
mhm.
what your definition of that is can just open up that whole range, but maybe even being able to say that, saying, "Yes, I'm dealing with these erectile issues right now, and I would still love to be intimate with you. Can we explore that together?"
Yeah, absolutely, and that's such courage because,
Mm,
again, there is a performance thing
yeah.
there, and, I think that for folks who have clitorises, they're not faking orgasm for them, they're faking orgasm
No,
for their
yeah,
partner.
because they don't wanna hurt their
They don't wanna
feelings,
hurt their
yeah.
feelings, and so sometimes these conversations can look like, "I don't need I our sex is very pleasurable even when I don't have an
Yes, yeah,
orgasm."
totally.
And having that I have found to be very transformative for some couples, where if there's the expectation that you have to perform,
Mm.
whether,
Yeah, then you can just relax and enjoy it,
Yeah,
really enjoy it, and then maybe eventually you get there, you
right.
come to that.
Even for anybody,
Yeah,
sometimes when there's the delayed ejaculation for folks with penises, being able to say, "This I just want this to be about you." That's
yeah, totally,
incredibly pleasurable for me,
totally.
and having your partner be able to accept your
Yes,
word as truth.
totally,
But again, that
and really enjoy it.
requires a high level of communication
Yes,
about
that's right.
understanding what brings your partner pleasure.
Okay, so if I'm reflecting accurately, it sounds like around the act is sometimes a little easier, like pillow talk afterwards, you're
Can be, if
saying,
it's
just
positive.
yep, if it's positive, just sort of like sprinkling if you're not used to talking about it at all,
Yep,
you could start by saying, "Wow, I really enjoyed X, Y, or Z,"
yeah.
because that's just a safe, easy way,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of expand beyond the bedroom a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're giving negative feedback, I would not give it in the bedroom.
No, no, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely not.
that sort of like, "I would like for this to be more pleasurable. Can we brainstorm?" Don't have that
Yeah,
conversation right after
totally.
you've had unpleasurable
And it
sex.
sounds like bringing in some other information that you've read or would like to read together
It
is a
can be
great way
helpful.
to sort of deflect a little bit from.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Wow, this has been so helpful.
Thanks for listening to Under the Hood. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Please like, share, and subscribe.